So welcome everyone to the Virtual Venture Cafe. Well, thank you very much for joining us today for our global gathering. This is a very special event, and we are partnering with 9 venture cafes globally to deliver over 20 hours of nonstop content from Australia and Japan to Philadelphia and Miami, Cambridge, Roxbury, Boston, and Providence. Our first session of the day will focus on equity and innovation, and we're glad to have Roxbury Innovation Center today as our content partner. But before I hand this session over to our presenters, please remember to ask any questions you have in the chat or the Q&A function. You can ask questions. Keeping your identity discreet if you would like, or make them public. With that, let me introduce Christian Athea, Entrepreneur Program Coordinator at Roxbury Innovation Center, who will be moderating this wonderful discussion today. So Christian is, as I already mentioned, is an entrepreneur program coordinator at Venture Cafe New England's District Hall and Roxbury Innovation Center, and he's helping entrepreneurs to launch and scale their businesses. He leads the Launched by Roxbury program, a strategic path for aspiring entrepreneurs to launch their idea into a viable business. Each month, Christian hosts one-on-one mentor sessions to help people take the next step in their entrepreneurial path. And with this, I would like to hand this over to you, Christian.
Thank you, Yulia, for the introduction. And I'd like to thank everyone tuning in right now as well. We really appreciate you guys in this current landscape taking the time to see what we're doing as an organization. So I'm excited for the conversation today. We have literally, I think, a superstar, star-studded panelist or panel for today. And I want to get right into those introductions. Before I jump into that, though, I do want to say that Roxbury Innovation Center will be hosting a pitch night virtually again in about a month or so, and that's our marquee event. So just be out on the lookout in the chat at some point for that link to drop. We'd love to have you all come and watch and support entrepreneurs in Greater Roxbury. But aside from that, I want to get into some introductions. So today on the panel, and I'll start at the top, we have, in my opinion, some of my favorite entrepreneurs that I've had a chance to just speak with and work with and just learn from as well in this past year. Diane Austin is on the panel today. She's the CEO and co-founder of Coils to Locks, a startup that addresses healthcare disparity for cancer patients of color, given the current lack of access to Afro-textured wigs covered by health insurance. Diane Austin, I want to let you talk about it. I don't want to hype it up too much. But we also have Quiana Agbai today on the panel. She's the co-founder and director of marketing at Trifecta Media Group, a business that helps provide marketing support to small businesses and startups. We have Janai Mungalsingh. She currently teaches a practical and active learning immersion into entrepreneurship course at, is faculty at Roxbury Community College and teaches a class, Starting Your Own Business, while designing and managing digital learning tools at Boston University. And last but certainly not least, we have Gian Doherty, is a co-founder of Organic Bath Co., a health and wellness business providing high-quality natural skin products. And she's also the creative director of Well Summit, an experience for wellness professionals seeking self-improvement. And I want to also now just give space for the entrepreneurs to briefly introduce themselves to the audience and speak to some things that hopefully I didn't overdo on my end. I am definitely excited to be hosting this panel, but Diane, if you would go first and just share a little bit about yourself with the audience.
Absolutely. Christian, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be on this panel with my fellow entrepreneurs. I'm Diane Austin. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Coils to Locks, and we are disrupting a healthcare disparity, and that's the lack of these curly, quilly wigs that can be purchased at cancer center hospitals using one's health insurance. And that's a little bit about the business. I'm looking forward to sharing more.
Thank you, Diane. And Janai, would you just introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure. So I'm faculty at Roxbury Community College. The course that I teach, Starting Your Own Business, really takes the startup experience and accelerates it into a semester-long immersion where I tell the students there's no there's no lies in that title. You will start your own business in this course. And I get to pull in my knowledge from managing digital learning tools and really bring in technology into the experience of starting your own business.
Thank you, Janai. And Quiana, could you introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure. Hi, I'm Quiana Agbai. I'm the co-founder of Trifecta Media Group. It's a graphic design, marketing, and PR consultancy, which works with small businesses in those areas. A lot of our clients are startups, they're moonlighting, and we work with them very closely to be able to access all of those disciplines so that they can be successful in their small businesses. I co-founded it with my two sisters. One is a graphic designer, one is a publicist, and I have a background in marketing and media planning from years and years of agency experience, but it's been a really great way to connect with people here in the Boston community. Thank you.
Thank you, Quiana. And Gian, could you please introduce yourself to the audience?
Yes, hi, my name's Gian Doherty, and I am the co-founder of award-winning Organic Bath Co. We're a Boston-based clean beauty company disrupting the beauty industry. Started the brand about 6 years ago in my kitchen. At the time, had no idea how unregulated the personal care and beauty industry is in the US, as well as how many toxic ingredients women, especially Black women, are marketed. And we're still here, still self-funded. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thank you, all of you, for introducing yourself. I'm excited to start the discussion. So, yeah, no, I'm seeing the comments too. I'm glad everybody is excited to just get all the information. I think this will be a really great conversation. So to start, I just have some general questions I'd like everyone to answer, just so that everyone in the audience kind of understands how you got here today and some of the hurdles and difficulties you guys have faced. And then also just how you heard about Venture Cafe and the Roxbury Innovation Center. So to start, and we can start with Quiana, why did you start the business, or start working on this idea and building it out?
Yeah, definitely. So Trifecta Media Group started in 2014. I was having a geographic change in my family. We were at the time in New York City. I'm originally from Columbus, Ohio, but came out east to go to Wellesley all the way back in 1998. But my husband, who's originally from New York City, had a job there. We relocated there from Boston when we were done with school. And in 2014, after having my second child, we were then moving up to Portsmouth, New Hampshire, which was quite a change of pace. So I was starting to think, what is something that I can do as a second time over new mom with my newborn, knowing that I wasn't in the corporate world. I had been running a lifestyle blog at that point since 2009, but I had that marketing background, having worked at agencies here in Boston and New York City, and having worked in the corporate retail marketing environment. So I decided at that time, once we were moving up to New Hampshire, that it would be great to be able to partner with my sisters. The three of us were sending a lot of freelance projects to each other, and we thought it would be a great way to kind of consolidate work together. We actually get along, which is awesome. But it was really my dad who really pushed us as siblings to think about what are ways that we could form an actual business. And so the name Trifecta Media Group came about. And we just started taking on clients little by slowly, really word of mouth, and really being able to weave it into a lot of our day-to-day experiences. Some of us, we were also working corporate, moonlighting also for Trifecta Media Group. And then also for my role as a mother, I have a 6-year-old and a soon-to-be 10-year-old next week. And so I wanted to think about what was a way that I could keep moving in my career, keep my foot in the door, and still build a schedule and still stay connected. And I think by starting Trifecta Media Group, all these years later, it's really given me the opportunity to do that. And then fast forward to 2016, we relocated back to Boston, which is where my husband and I first met in 1999. We were 18 at the time. But coming back in 2016, it was really great to be able to reconnect with people who had stayed. It was actually through another mother at my children's school that I found out about the Roxbury Innovation Center. She invited me to one of the sessions for the pitch competition that ended up taking place in February. And then I thought I was going to just, sit by as a bystander and learn a little something, but I ended up being able to put together a pitch and thinking about, what do my sisters and I want to do moving forward? How can we go beyond just this word of mouth business? How can we build long-term wealth for our family and create a flexible business around just our family lives? And I think it was just a great way to again, reconnect. And so that's how I found out about the Roxbury Innovation Center. And then I ended up placing second in the pitch competition. And then of course, COVID happened. So I know we'll get into a little bit about what that's looked like for our businesses. But I think, you know, I really appreciate everything that Venture Cafe represents and the ability that it's helped me to connect with entrepreneurs like those on this panel.
Thank you. I mean, that's awesome. And I definitely want to get into how you juggle all your responsibilities and still have such an amazing business. Definitely just seeing your pitch. It's impressive. But I'll move over now to Janai. If you could also just let us know, I mean, you work a lot in education, and I know that there's so much that comes with that, particularly right now. But just hearing about how you got started on fleshing out the curriculum and the hurdles in starting, and also about how you heard about Roxbury.
Yeah, so I have, my background is in entrepreneurship education, and once I had the opportunity to teach at RCC, I really focused on giving the students the opportunity to apply entrepreneurship in their community. And so I wanted to work really intentionally with members of the community and people who are accessible to the students in terms of their entrepreneurial ventures. Like so often people who are interested in entrepreneurship get interested in like the celebrity of it, and or they feel like it's not for them. And so by being able to meet in person and interact with businesses within their communities, I mean, the students are from the Roxbury area, so being able to hear other people's journeys and stories, I think really gave teeth to the ideas that they had. And so, you know, when I first started out, I've been teaching this course since 2015. So when I first started out, it was about, you know, go out and test these ideas. But I think that that context of like, is this for me? How do I see myself in this space? I had the pleasure of connecting with Kai Grant at Black Market as a space that supported entrepreneurs. And I had read about it and I reached out to her, and we were able to connect, and the students had an opportunity to pop up at her space. And so it really helped make it real for them in terms of how they approached entrepreneurship. And I definitely brought that best practice in. And in my time there, just going to the pop-ups, I was introduced to members of Roxbury Innovation Center. And from there, it's been great to be able to think about pathways to send the students, that their experience doesn't just end at the end of the semester, that they can continue to take their ideas and build on it. And especially working with students who are in every stage of their entrepreneurship, from, you know, I think I want to be an entrepreneur to I already have something started. There's something there for everyone. And then now that we're you know, where we are in the world with COVID, and you know, my other background in curriculum development is emerging technology and digital technology. So this really created an awesome opportunity to think about, I mean, technology has always been a part of it because of that access piece and trying to create those communities for our students. And, you know, they don't have the huge budgets to start their business. So showing them, you know, what's available to them, open source, technology wise. And now this is really the time to shine with technology. So that's been my journey, and I'm excited to continue to you know, be a part of this with Venture Cafe and Digital Pathways.
Awesome, thank you. And yeah, I mean, I can imagine just what's happening with college. Like my little sister's about to go to school, and there's so much around, do we even go? Do we just take like online classes? What does that look like? So there's so much changing right now. And I know the work that you're doing is going to be extremely valuable for the Roxbury community and anyone who comes into contact with it, to be honest. So Diane, would love to hear about, and it's great because I get to hear the story more than once, and it's an awesome story, but just hearing about why you started your business, and how Quiana came to be, some of the hurdles you overcame, and then just your first few interactions with Roxbury.
Sure. So this business started based on a cancer diagnosis in 2015. I was diagnosed with breast cancer, learned that I would have to have surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation. And as part of that process, my oncologist gave me a wig prescription, also known as a cranial prosthesis, and said, you can take this wig prescription and get a medical wig at any cancer center or hospital in the area. And I did that, but what I found was that none of these hospitals had coily, curly types of wigs. All of the wigs were straight-haired wigs, and I didn't straighten my hair and hadn't for probably 5 or 6 years. And that was disturbing to me. And what I did was start to do some research, actually across the nation, when I found that I could not go anywhere in Boston and use my health insurance to purchase this wig, because I knew I wanted a wig. Because I did not want to draw attention to myself. I wanted to look as much like myself as possible during what was really a difficult time for me. And I decided to call around the nation with the help of my co-founder and sister, Pamela, and what I call my sister cousin, Cheryl. We made some calls around the country to major cancer center hospitals that had these retail stores and asked if they had wigs that looked like my hair, being very descriptive about what I was looking for. And it was no, every call, no, we don't, no, we don't, no, we don't, no, we don't. And these are major hospitals from coast to coast. And I became really frustrated and quite frankly angry by the fact that this was a market that these hospitals weren't serving. So essentially, this is a healthcare disparity, because individuals like myself who may want a wig don't have the opportunity to be treated the same as others who are looking for wigs and are able to get the types of wigs that they want to get. And I was denied the opportunity to use my health insurance. So after getting over that sense of frustration, I really decided that I wanted to do something about this disparity. And that's how Quills to Locks was born. I asked one of my sisters if she would join me, and she, readily agreed, and asked my cousin to join us. She's our communications person, and we began to build this business starting in 2015, when I was going through treatment. And some of the hurdles that I went through in terms of building this business really centered around one, sort of not knowing what I didn't know. So I would take these disparate classes across, Boston, maybe a workshop on marketing and maybe a workshop on the legal aspects of business. But what I really needed was this blueprint that helped me to understand and helped us to understand what the process was to build a strong infrastructure, to build operations so that you are starting the business successfully. I also got turned down in terms of a number of accelerator programs that I tried to apply for. And fortunately, I was accepted with TLE Consulting Group, run by Trisha Young, and many people may know who she is, but she has this wonderful program in the community to help support entrepreneurs. And thank you, Trisha, because based on her accepting me, despite me just being in the idea stage, because that was one of the hurdles, all of these accelerators, particularly the ones that have like all of this equity-free money, and I won't name some of them, but there's quite a few out there. They're very much focused on technology, or there's this lack of understanding, I think, about the business. For example, we applied for one of the major accelerators here in Boston, and one of the judges indicated in the feedback that he gave me, I didn't make it to the next step, but that it was hard for him to believe that the Black beauty industry was a multi-billion-dollar industry. And I had provided like direct quotes from credible sources. So there were those types of hurdles. And then certainly the financial hurdle had been, and still is to some aspects, a big one, because we've been bootstrapping this business since 2015 up until 2 weeks ago, when we were fortunate to get funding, a business loan through the Runway Project. And I'm very grateful for that. We're very grateful for that. I got connected with Roxbury Innovation Center because I took a class. It was a workshop, so I was on the email list, and I saw an email about a pitch competition in November, one of which that I almost did not apply for, but thank goodness I did, because I had so much going on, and I was like, oh, I can do it next time, and I just, did it, and grateful to say that we won first place at that November competition, and that has led to so many other opportunities. Roxbury Innovation Center has been so supportive in so many ways, so that's a little bit about our story.
Thank you. Always when you share that story, I mean, it's inspiring firstly, and just to see the growth of your business it's amazing. So we're excited to see you continue to grow. And then last but certainly not least, Gian, could you just tell us a little bit about Organic Bath Co., some of the hurdles you've overcome, and then just your relationship with Venture Cafe New England and Roxbury Innovation Center?
Yeah, so I'll start with the relationship with Venture Cafe. We actually had attended an event years ago through Boston Eco Group. And then recently was reconnected with the current team, yourself, Tara, and Dan, through another entrepreneur, Evie Chen from Evie's Tea. And as any entrepreneur out there knows, sometimes it can be so lonely in this space. So as soon as we were introduced, I was like, we got to be there once a week. So that's what we started doing. And we made you guys our community, and we're so grateful for you. So yeah, again, Organic Bath Co. started in my kitchen 6 years ago when I was breaking out in hives, and discovered, how sensitive my skin was, and realized that I really needed simple, pure, non-toxic formulas. Your skin is your body's largest organ. So what you put on every day truly accumulates, and you want to make sure that you're putting on safe ingredients. And as I started making more products for myself, and my fiance, who is my business partner, started sharing with family and friends, and realized that other women really needed these products as well. So from our kitchen to now our production studio in Charlestown, we have grown bit by bit. We are still 100% self-funded. So we really are always reinvesting in the business when we can. So hurdles, always resources, always money, right? Always watching cash flow. But I will say that, not having a lot of money allows you to not make very expensive mistakes, which I can imagine if someone had written me a very large check, who knows what kind of mistakes I would have learned, what lessons I would have learned. But, very grateful for our journey and how we've grown and how we continue to grow Organic Bath Co. We were actually just named Best of Boston from Boston Magazine for our hand sanitizers.
Congratulations on that. And I actually did buy some products from you at a pop-up last year, and my girlfriend has now ordered me to get some more. So I'll be on your website probably the next couple hours, to be honest.
I'll keep an eye out for that, Christian.
So we're going to move now into, I think, some more specific questions. I definitely want to talk about the current climate. When I say the current climate, not just what's happening with COVID-19, but also there's been a heightened awareness of longstanding social issues around economic inequality, police brutality, and even structural racism in our society. And these issues affect every part of our society, especially how we do business, and in many cases, why we do business. So the question I want to pose to the panel just initially, and this is something I'll just do spot questions because there's some follow-up questions I'll also ask, is do you think a part of the solution to these problems, and when I say these problems societally, in business as well, is creating more access to wealth and opportunities to build wealth through entrepreneurship? do we believe that entrepreneurs can be a part of the solution of addressing social inequality and addressing racism and addressing economic inequality? And I'm going to start with Quiana.
Definitely. And I think there's kind of a cross section of kind of where companies in the past were kind of thinking of themselves as these stoic entities, right? And now we're starting to see the breakdown of some of these figureheads, these leaders at these companies, being able to come out and make strong statements. And so there's been kind of a trickle down effect. I mean, I think of like a Ben and Jerry's who's been very prominent in social justice causes for many years. And so we kind of thought of them before as almost like an outlier. And now really seeing other brands, other companies come on board with that. I think we're seeing that as small business owners. What are ways that we can engage? Can we start where we're at and make an impact in our community? So that's something that I see with my clients. That's something I think about as a co-founder with my sisters. And the other piece where I mentioned a little bit on my lifestyle blog, it's something that I've seen even in influencer spaces and in my background as a marketer working with social media on the other side of the table, where before it was just a very transactional relationship. And now you're starting to see brands really want to work with influencers and think about ways that we can talk about conscious consumerism. What are ways that we can stand up for justice? And I think also consumers on their side are also asking companies to be accountable. They're saying, you know what, let me see what your boardroom looks like. That's great that you had a black square, but how can we go beyond that? How can we go beyond Blackout Tuesday and show up and spend our dollars appropriately, and then take them away if something doesn't align? So I feel like there's just this whole shift that's happening right now. And I think in terms of accessing wealth, accessing capital in the midst of COVID, in the midst of Blackout Tuesday, this whole era is really shedding a spotlight on deficits, on inequities. And I think because of that, money is starting to shift, and we're just starting to see the beginning of that.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think all the things you spoke to are things, one, there is new consumer power, right? We have the ability to almost in real time look at a business, and you can see a business's fortunes go up or go down based off a response or lack thereof to certain current events and issues, particularly socially, and with like the heightened awareness on these movements. And I wanted to follow up and pose this question to the panel as well. Well, we see these issues happening in these different contexts, economic, social, even political. How has the actual transition from in-person, like there's opportunities to do pop-ups, opportunities to do like events like these would have been in person, right? You would have been able to get off the panel and speak to everyone in the audience. How has this transition to a really primarily digital workspace, how has it affected your business? And when I say your business, everyone on the panel's business. And I know that Diana, you have a product-based business where you provide a physical product. How has this digital space, has it helped? Has it hurt? Like, what has been your experience thus far?
So our business model is that we sell our wigs wholesale to cancer center hospitals. And so that will change in the next 6 to 12 months because we're working on creating some wig styles that will be exclusive to our website, and we will start to sell digitally. But what we noticed, particularly with the pandemic, it really did impact the first few months of this pandemic. It impacted our ability to sell wigs to the partners, businesses that we've partnered with. And we have 5 businesses right now, the hospitals, medical salons that we're partnered with, because these places shut down. Hospitals were only letting in the sickest of the sick, and so you couldn't go in to like try on a wig at a cancer center store. So it made us sort of move up the process of how we will be interacting with businesses. One of the things that we are looking into right now is adding augmented reality to our website so that people can actually try on wigs virtually, similar to what you might do at a Sephora, and like upload your picture, for example, and be able to try on makeup. We had always planned on adding that feature, but you know, the urgency has moved up a little bit for us because of what's happening overall in terms of businesses.
Thank you for that. And you touched on a really great point when you talk about like this integrated reality, this like creating a more involved experience for the consumer when you eventually start doing those sales on your website. And this is actually a great follow-up question I want to pose to Gian is, you also, I know, run with Organic Bath Co. at least, a product-based business. You're providing really great products to consumers. How have you tackled making sales digitally? Has the process that you've employed been the same pre-COVID, or have you thought of different ways to try to attract consumers in this new digital space?
So I want to say that, you know, just to begin with, I'm a big believer in investing in your network, which is why I was always at District Hall Venture Cafe. And so, you know, after COVID or during COVID, that has paid off dividends. So as soon as the world opens up back up again, I will be out there because it does pay off. And all those relationships that, you know, people I already knew, they just moved right online. So I'm thankful for that. With Organic Bath Co., we were always sending, you know, we sell online. We also have wholesaler relationships. We immediately started doing weekly Instagram giveaways to try to engage the audience more. Because while we did do some pop-ups and we would pop up at different conferences or host our own events, our goal as a self-funded business with limited marketing budget is to always reach more and more people while maintaining our current consumers. So the social media product giveaways allowed us to reach new people. We also created our own private Facebook group, which I have to get more active in if anyone wants to join, Clean Living with Organic Bath Co., which gives us direct access to our most bought-in customers. So we're always just trying to stay top of mind with our customer. We also invested in more photography because as people are at home, they're scrolling social media. We needed images that made them stop their scrolling and say, buy me. So we've just really been reimagining that total digital experience from the consumer beginning to end.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I'm sure there's gems in there for any entrepreneurs in the audience. Just when we think about how to engage online, and this kind of wraps up for me the opening end of questions. So the last question I have here is, everyone's working from home now, and we're in this digital workspace. And for me, I want to actually ask Janai this question. When we talk about how people can be effective in growing their businesses and learning new skills to help grow their businesses, what would you say to an entrepreneur who's now stuck at home in front of their laptop thinking about, okay, how do I still move from ideation to implementation? And what does that look like in a completely digital landscape?
So one of the things that we've always talked about, or that I've always talked about with my students, is the power of entrepreneurship to shift paradigms and to innovate. And so we often see that entrepreneurship and business becomes the disruptors of legislation, of process. And so even when you're in a circumstance like this, it's like, well, how can you rethink your product? How can you rethink your strategy? And how can you rethink your approach? So, I mean, even this past semester, I had, you know, these students were in the middle of market testing their ideas when that rug was just pulled from underneath them. And their marching orders were to, like, you know, hit the pavement, talk to people, get their ideas out there. And then they couldn't even do that. And they still had a class to pass. And so one of the students actually had a really great idea, and I think that this is where you get to, you know, play around with innovation. He had a photography business, and you know, we'd seen on social media them doing like the front door or the doorstep photographs and stuff like that, and he was like, well, I'm not even sure if I should even be going out there. And so one of his strategies was, well, I have a computer, I have all of the editing software, send me your photos. and I will Photoshop them, I will edit them for you. And so that was a service that he hadn't looked at before, but it was a way to keep his idea going forward. And so, I mean, just like the other panelists mentioned, you know, pivots that they've made, I think that this is a real opportunity to pull in those resources. And I think that access becomes a big problem, because we're not just talking about computers. Not everybody has a computer available to them. And I, even at RCC, there are some students who are using, you know, tablets and stuff like that, and mobile devices on the go, and then come in and use the computer lab. And so there's no computer lab, there's no library to go to. So also thinking about how can you amplify the use of your digital devices, what apps are out there, what open source opportunities are out there. And also one of the places that I found really helpful in terms of just being able to be in a community of practice is these online spaces and communities where you can talk to other people who are going through the same things as you, and you can share your ideas and collaborate.
Thank you. And I think that's an excellent segue to what I would like to consider really the main part of this panel discussion. I have some individual questions for all of you. And for anyone hopping in right now, thank you for tuning in. We're about to get into the exciting part of the panel. So Quiana, I actually have a question for you. And this, I think you touched on it briefly earlier, but we're just talking about this digital landscape, right? Since the launch of the internet, businesses and brands have had to move towards utilizing digital marketplaces. And in this current climate with COVID, just like Gian was saying, just like Janai was saying, just like Diane was saying, we have to adopt innovative marketing strategies to engage our potential customers, and paying attention to trends as well, like supporting Black-owned businesses and events like Blackout Tuesday. It's a major event on social media that dictate where people give their attention. So as someone who is the director of marketing for Trifecta Media Group, excuse me, how should startups and small businesses approach this space and market themselves effectively?
I think the first step is really to turn internal. I think we moved past Blackout Tuesday and some of the performance allyship, you know, to just put up that black square, and then now the internal work begins. And so we've seen a lot of that. Companies, some of them successfully, have been able to kind of self-assess, think about, you know, who is in leadership, where do we have deficits, where are there blind spots. And so I think the first step is to really look internally at the structure of your company, even if it is a small business like me and my sisters, just the three of us. We think about, you know, ways that we can even be more intentional, especially if we're looking at talent acquisition, or ways that we can even support other businesses in a peer-to-peer perspective. I think one of the other things that's really important to do is also to educate. So I think there is an element of everybody snatching up the anti-racism books right now from Amazon and elsewhere. So I think that education piece is just one part. I think it's the start of a journey, and whether that be personal or corporate, you have to have the language and the framework and understand that there are going to be mistakes made, and to be very forthright. I think that ability to kind of have that fourth wall and speak directly to your consumer, to your audience, allows you to show the personality of your brand, to be able to say, you know what, we're learning as you are too. This is a journey. This isn't performance, and that we're going to be in it for the long haul. And so there's the ability to really be intentional about how you're using social media, to talk about the things that you might be learning as a brand, partnerships that you may be forming, and to just be cognizant of doing it in a way that's not performance-based. I mean, you know, there are no cookies in this anti-racism journey, but you're doing it just to be able to show authenticity, to be able to show to your consumers that this is something that's a priority, and then you really put your money where your mouth is. And if you do that under the radar, if you don't do that in a way to you know, show that you're making some type of PR move, just to check yourself from an accountability perspective. Even if you have a board of almost like your own anti-racism board of directors, you could get together with other small business owners and even form a coalition to be able to talk to each other and keep each other accountable as you move forward in your own personal anti-racism journey, and then also for your company. And I think that this is just a time that we just really need to turn a little inward, look at where we're at, because businesses ultimately are people, and that's what it comes down to.
Thank you for that response. And I think that what you brought up, right, like the opportunity to speak to the audience, we can break that fourth wall. We can look back at the camera and speak to the audience. Like that's all a part of crafting, in my opinion, a narrative around the brand. And if that narrative is authentic, people can tell. And people can also tell when it seems to be like, okay, we need to put something out so that we don't look bad. And that has come, we've seen that happen and play out across all the digital platforms and that people engage with on social media. But I also think this is a great segue to a question I have for Diane. When we talk about crafting a strong brand narrative, right, it connects with potential customers is, I think, an indispensable strategy towards growing the business. Coils to Locks was recently featured in Forbes magazine back in June. And I imagine that has exposed you to a wide audience of people who may have not heard of you before. How has that increased exposure moved the needle in regards to online reach and new opportunities to sell the wigs wholesale? I believe you're still muted. Yeah.
Forgot about that. It definitely moved the needle. And I do want to start by saying that I have Roxbury Innovation Center to thank for that Forbes magazine article, because if I hadn't entered the pitch competition in November, Daniel, who heads the Roxbury Innovation Center, wouldn't have been able to share at a conference that he was attending information about Coils to Locks. And this Forbes reporter was at that conference and wanted to know more about Coils to Locks. So I just wanted to throw that out there that, so many things, these relationships, you don't know how they're going to come about and how you'll build those relationships. But it's definitely made, we've gotten a lot of attention, as you can imagine, from the Forbes article. We recently, for example, got a partnership with a salon on Newberry Street, a medical salon. And we are starting conversations with a number of hospitals across the country that have reached out to us. So we've always been planning on expanding the business nationally, but this Forbes article has definitely moved up the exposure of Coils to Locks and moved up sort of our slower timeline in terms of national expansion. But yes, and it's brought a lot of attention, and it just also stressed the importance to us of having a really solid digital presence, because when people started landing on the Coils to Locks webpage, we had our mission statement, our mission, our vision, and values. We had that Coils to Locks journey. We had resources that people could review to learn more about us, and we also were able to very clearly share our contact information. So, you have to get ready for what you may not know is coming down the pike. And so, that having that solid digital presence has really, really helped us, so that people already, once we're speaking to them, they know the Coils to Locks story. They know they have a sample of what some of our wigs look like and all of those things. Yeah, it's an exciting time. It's really a busy and exciting time for us.
Yeah, I mean, and I know our team was super excited when we heard about that opportunity that became available to Forbes, and we know that's just the start. So once again, thank you for putting your trust in us. I want to switch tacks here real quick and speak again about what's happening in this corporate space. So there's a lot of initiatives that are happening right now. A lot of large corporations and many businesses are trying to help level the playing field for entrepreneurs. And one of these initiatives is a 15% pledge, right? And it's calling on big retailers to devote 15% of their product shelf space to historically underrepresented brands. And for me, I want to ask Gian, what do you think initiatives like this can do for a business like Organic Bath Co. And just also from another point of view, how do you recommend other product-based businesses take advantage of that type of opportunity?
Such a great question. And I think it's exactly as you said, Christian, it levels the playing field, especially in beauty. It's cash intensive, right? We don't have a PR team. We don't, so we're not necessarily the buzziest brand. I can say objectively, I have an amazing product. And when people try it, they love it, right? But so many different beauty retailers or magazine editors, they want to cover the brands that are, starting with millions of dollars, and they have that buzz right out the gate. And that just was not the case when I was starting Organic Bath Co. in my kitchen from a need, right? And now a passion. So these opportunities really do level the playing field, and they force companies to give, for these gatekeepers, I would say, to look at brands that they might not have otherwise, right? To say, hey, you need to reach this quota. Let's have a conversation, because potentially if we work together, I can help you reach this quota. So I think it levels the playing field, and it really opens up a lot of doors. And I myself have, been trying to take advantage of that as much as possible. No shame in my game. I'm here to grow a big national business.
Absolutely. And I think this is great. I'm going to try something. So everyone that's in the chat right now, if anyone who's watching has ever had an idea or has wanted to start a business, just drop a 1 in the chat. If there's like a stream of ones, like number 1. Okay, I see the ones coming in. Wow. Okay, a lot of people have had a business idea. So this is a great segue to the next question. And John, thank you for your answer, because you're saying any opportunity you can as an entrepreneur, you take advantage of it. Janai, what are some of the common misconceptions that people have about launching their own business venture? Like, there's a lot of excitement on the front end. It's like, I have the idea, I'm really excited, I feel like this is going to be a multi-million-dollar business. And then they try to create the MVP, and they're like, okay, this is going to cost a lot of money. And then they don't have the network, and then a whole host of other things ensue. What advice would you give someone about navigating those initial hurdles?
Firstly, I would say start with what you have. You won't have everything all at once. And I think for, taking those first steps, you end up seeing these things fall into place. And one of the things I had talked about, kind of working in community. One of the things that has been the most shocking to me, especially if we talk about, this creating space and stuff like that, even before we were giving verbiage to it, as I have asked the students to engage in the Roxbury community, whether it's people giving feedback about their idea or making a connection for them, I have been shocked at the amount of people who say yes. Like when you go out there and you ask for help, or you ask for, some kind of guidance with your business, there are so many people who are willing to step up and be like, you know what, this isn't for me, but I do know somebody who can help you with this. Or they're like, do you have more information? Can I sign up for your newsletter? Or they share it on their Facebook, or they follow, they follow your brand. There are so many yay sayers out there. I think that people there's this reputation of entrepreneurship being steeped in failure and all of those other things. And I think that there's a number of reasons why businesses fail, but it's certainly not for this, or for a lack of support from community. I feel like there's a lot of people out there who will cheer you on, who will give you the feedback, who will give you direction. And so don't let that be a barrier, and definitely don't let not having everything at once. Just like Gian said, she started in her kitchen. So you start with what you have and what you know.
Absolutely. And thank you for that. For me, I knew while I was in college that entrepreneurship was something that I wanted to pursue. But at the time I was like, well, what do you do? Like, I didn't know about LLCs or sole proprietorships. That wasn't information that is shared or was in conversation with family, right? At dinner, we're not talking about who grossed the much in Q1 revenue. We're not discussing those things. So oftentimes there is a lack of access to the information, but once you have that information, I think the applications can be endless.
And so we also focus on context too, right? Like, so all of the things you said are just words without anything to apply it to. You could see what kind of entity your business should be if you have one. You can see what your business model should be if you have started to interact with people and seen what their interest is and how they're what they're willing to pay, or how they're starting to access you, whether they're finding you online or in person. So I think that, you know, you don't have to also know everything out the gate. I think that that information comes with more context and experience.
Absolutely. And thank you everyone on the panel for your responses. There's plenty of other questions that I personally want to ask, just to pick everyone's brains, but I do want to give the audience an opportunity to ask some questions. So I see we have a question already in the Q&A. I will say, anyone who's putting questions in the chat, if you could drop that question in the Q&A section, just so it didn't get lost in the wash. But now is the time. If you have any questions, I believe we have another 10, 12 minutes or so, if I'm correct. This panel ends at 4 officially. So now is definitely the time. Any questions? So the first question we have from Courtney Pong is, when it comes to looking inward, as Quiana mentioned, what are some other ways you all personally have deeply rooted diversity, equity, inclusion in your company and decision-making processes? So let me see how this is. Okay, so what are some other ways you have deeply rooted diversity, equity, inclusion in your company? Do your vendors use or get vetted across? So like if you're working with someone. So I think this is a great question, and I can open it up to the panel. So if anyone immediately has something to say to this, then certainly hop in. But from my understanding, it's just a question about how you vet any partners or vendors, and how you involve diversity, equity, inclusion in your business decision-making process, and just how you interact with the community.
Hi. So, yes, definitely, it's something that we're mindful of. For example, we're in the process of looking for a fulfillment center to house, you know, our weight inventory. And so we've been very conscious of doing a search to make sure that the companies that we're considering, you know, that we're considering diverse companies in that pool. So one, if anyone has any recommendations on diverse fulfillment centers, please let us know. But we are very conscious of that. And a part of that is just because that's how we operate. The other piece is, you know, I'm still in the diversity, inclusion, and equity space in the work that I do in my 9 to 5. So it's always something that is in the forefront for me, and definitely for us as an organization.
Thank you. So we have another question here. So someone asked, if you need to raise funding, right? How do you get access to funding? So for people on the panel who have raised funding, how did you access it or raise it? And what would you recommend for someone who's super early, saying, well, I need to get some funding now. I have my MVP, but I need some funding to implement it. What would you say to someone who's looking for funding?
I'll jump in real quickly, but as an entrepreneur who is still self-funded, I would really ask yourself, do you have to raise that much money? And then what are you giving in return for that money? There have been times where I've thought, oh my gosh, it'd be so much easier if I had 5,000, right? Remember when I had $5,000 problems? Now I have $50,000 problems. But I never started selling off pieces of my company. And now that we are bigger and continue growing and are continuing to grow, I'm very happy with that. So I think really sit with yourself and make sure that you're not raising because that's sexy and that's going to get press and that's what people are doing, but because you actually need that money and you know exactly how you're going to spend it and what the return on that spend will be.
I think that's a great Excellent answer. And that's something that I know a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with, even when we do one-on-ones, is, well, I need all this money. And it's like, well, first, let's make sure that you actually have something that you can grow, right? Like, you don't want to just throw money into this open pit and hope that a business pops out of it. So thank you for that response. And here's a question from Douglas Elliott. So he asks, or they ask, do you track your intellectual assets as a source / support for your business financings? So if I could better understand that question, do you track your intellectual assets? So anything you've created, intellectual property. I think this, hopefully I'm understanding, like any native content or things that you create as support for your business financings. Does anyone in the panel want to take a stab at this? Douglas Elliott reason. Hey, Douglas, if you could elaborate on this question a bit more.
I'm not sure that I understand the question.
Yeah, the same here. So Douglas, if you have a chance, just type out just maybe a little more explanation around that question, then we'll try to get to that one. But I did see a really great question here. How do you balance work, personal life, and also growing your business? And I think anyone on the panel could definitely tackle this one. Quiana, you can.
Yeah, I'll take that, especially because of the intersection of entrepreneurship, motherhood, those of us who are having to get right back into distance learning in a few weeks. I think one of the things that's really been important to me is kind of looking at ways that my mental health is put at the top of the list. So I think coming off of July being Minority Mental Health Month, there was a lot of spotlight put on that. But I think really looking at what are ways that I can feel supported. I look to therapy for Black girls to find my therapist. I've been able to increase some of my sessions and just to be able to look for ways around me to find that support. And I think being glued, tethered to our devices even more. So now that, we're confined in our homes or wherever we may be, it almost makes that endless entrepreneurship day go on even longer than it did before. So I've been putting up more boundaries, really finding ways to divide my time, to step away from my space, and just to be able to be more cognizant of my health as well. So being able to go out with my family, even if it's just around our block, but getting that exercise, tackling my mental health, and understanding that that's part of how my business will grow, is if I take care of myself.
I wanted to say that the advice that especially when I'm working with students and students at RCC who are balancing school, home, work, and their education, and now they're supposed to run a startup, kind of like the previous question where we were talking about, how much money do you need? That becomes part of the conversation, is like, how much money do you need? Well, how much business can you really handle? And so setting your financial goals and planning your business operations around what's truly feasible. If you only have one day a week to work on this in terms of getting it started, really thinking about, okay, well, my business is not going to be $100,000 business on one day a week. This is more realistic in terms of what money I need to operate and what my revenue expectations are. And then that helps you build on in terms of managing your schedule, your obligations, and also not biting off more than you can chew.
Thank you for that response. I just want to know if no one else on the panel wants to answer that question. We have another great question here from Regina Renee. Hi, Regina. I remember you from our last pitch competition, so it's awesome to see that you're taking part in this discussion. So you asked, how do you actively lift as you climb by supporting other entrepreneurs of color?
I'll jump in for this. It doesn't have to be a heavy lift. We all know way more than we think we do, and we have lessons to share, right? So if you're joining different Facebook groups, if you share a bit about your journey on Instagram, I mean, I tend to follow a lot of other self-funded entrepreneurs who do a lot internally, and that motivates me. And I feel the pain when, you know, their boxes get dropped off at the wrong location, because we've had that happen, right? So I think it doesn't have to be, I'm going to take you from down there and bring you up to my level or whatever that is, right? Like, I wish Oprah would do that for me. That's a lot of heavy lifting though. But I think just say, hey, if you're just getting started, do you know about, you know, do you need an accountant recommendation, a lawyer recommendation? There's so many different things to share that you really don't know until you know, right? So again, don't think it's a heavy lift, and just be open.
Awesome. No, I mean, that is real. Like, sometimes you think that this is something is common knowledge, and then when you say it, it's like, oh, I didn't know that. Like, you can really help someone out just by sharing information. So that's something that I definitely would like second and wholeheartedly agree with. So, okay, Quiana.
Yes, I wanted to address Douglas, because I see he went a little bit deeper on his Q&A, and that was really interesting for us coming out of COVID, because we've seen some of the things that we had pre-COVID kind of pivot into other, I guess, intellectual property assets that we could potentially add into our menu of offerings. So for example, being able to run a workshop with the three of our levels of expertise together as a product that we offer, and can we brand that? That was something that we hadn't considered until this period of COVID. So rather than just giving our service, you know, business to business, is there a way that we can also help educate, and we become a facilitator of education, just the three of us amongst ourselves? So I think that's a great question, and that's something that's new for us. Here we are in year 5, and we hadn't thought about packaging ourselves, you know, as a specific educational workshop that can kind of be marketed and outsourced on its own.
Thank you, Quiana, for going back and answering that question. And I understand now, after you answered it, what the question was focused on. And yeah, I think that is going to be a new challenge for anyone who's now in this digital space and creating collateral and things like, how do you track and how do you make sure that, one, it's not being stolen as well. So I think this should be the last question, because I know we're 2 minutes over, and I feel like everyone is having a great time. And I can tell it's a great time because you don't see a huge drop off when the Q&A starts. Everyone's still here. So here's a question I think a lot of people who are at the idea stage can resonate with. And as someone who always has ideas personally, I know this is hard to narrow down, but Jasmine asks, I have so many ideas for businesses. How do you narrow it down to one?
I get a lot of students who come in. Some of them are like, I don't even have an idea. And so this is where community comes in. This is where, you know, being able to talk to people and really understand their needs. A lot of times we design our products around or our businesses around ourselves and our own needs, which definitely gives you a place to be able to start. You know, that's where your inspiration comes from. But then as you start to share your ideas with others, you get feedback on, you know, what it is your potential customers are looking for, what kinds of experiences they're trying to have, and your already familiarity with the community, you having already navigated some of those struggles, I think will also help to push you down a path. It might take 5 ideas and turn them into 2, but then you can test those ideas. But I think testing is really important, and I think sharing your ideas, and I think that's the part that's really tricky too, is just kind of putting yourself out there. And kind of seeing what sticks and what resonates with people. And it might give you some clarity around which places to focus.
I'd also like to just jump in quickly and say, also make sure it's something that you're really interested in. Because starting off a business, I know entrepreneurship is portrayed as so sexy and you own your time and you have freedom. It is hard, and I have given up and sacrificed so much for my business. And when I have to work until 2 a.m., which I had to do recently to fulfill all these GMA orders, or come in on the weekends, you really have got to believe in what you are doing and not just doing it because you wanted to start a business.
Thank you for those responses. And just also, I want to take time to thank all of our panelists. Thank you, Quiana. Thank you, Janai. Thank you, Diane. Thank you, Gian, for sharing your time. It was incredibly valuable. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and information with the audience that was here today. And thank you for sharing your stories. For me, it's inspiring to see what you guys have accomplished. I hope to continue to be part of that support system for all of you. And I wanted to say, too, for everyone in the audience, one thing I always like to push is intentional connections, making intentional connections. So I did drop, again, links to connect with each of the members of our panel today. So please follow them on LinkedIn, support their businesses, buy a product, recommend it to a friend. This helps grow their business and maybe even helps them meet the next big opportunity for their business. So please connect. And I'd like to thank everyone who came and attended today virtually. We know that there's 1,000 other things you could be doing. I'm sure there's some new Netflix show or something you could have been watching right now, but you were here with us. So I want to say thank you to all of you. And I'm going to hand it now back over to Yulia just to wrap up.
Thank you very much, Christian. Thank you, Quiana. Thank you, Janai. Thank you, Diane. Thank you, Gian. And Christian, thank you so much for stellar moderating. It was a pleasure having you all here today. We really appreciate your time and finding time in your busy schedules. Some of you may be working until 2 a.m. today, and we really appreciate you taking this hour of your time out of your day and sharing your stories. You are a true inspiration. A few things I need to say. I would love to wrap up at the note Christian was finishing, but I just wanted to say that we are going to have another session at 5 p.m. We'll have Christy Lindor leading a session on the future of work and leading an inclusive virtual culture. It's going to start at 5 p.m. and I've dropped the link to it in chat, so please feel free to click on it and attend. We have a survey link also in chat if you would like to share your opinion about how we did today. We'd really appreciate you giving us a mark. And it is the happening day today. It is our global gathering. And if you would like to attend a session anywhere in the world today is the day. Please go to Japan, go to Miami, anywhere you cannot fly to, you can totally participate in from the comfort of your home. And with this, thank you very, very much. I'm sure we are all applauding from our homes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, thank you.